Hello. So this is week one of reflections, and I'm pleasantly surprised that everything was aligned more so with um, like industry details. And it reminded me of like the agency that I'm with, and they had sort of an introduction course into um, like what to expect, what to do, basically the do's and don'ts of auditioning and being in the waiting room and the casting director, what not to do, what to do, the briefs, trying to understand the character and the brief fully, and being prepared early, polite, etc. All of those details, and they were very alike in the same. Um, which I found very interesting, because I mean they seem like such obvious things to take into account, but you don't really understand the full extent of what it means if you do not adhere to those things. Um, and sorry, let me refer back to my notes. Yeah, just like strange little things that like actually make sense, but like you wouldn't think that people actually do it. Like getting better at auditioning, like just going to audition for the sake of auditioning. And what I noticed is that, when you put less pressure on yourself, when there isn't this huge expectation of getting the job, having to pay the bills, doing all of that stuff, I feel like your chances of getting that role are better because you're in it for the experience and learning um, of it. Um, and it was just the order in which like things happen, um, that I found really interesting. And funny enough, like when I was and I don't know, this is probably a red flag, but when I was, going for Z cards and stuff like that for my agency, there was my agent came up to me and he was like, you need to really like start networking yourself and start talking because you're like isolating yourself now. And it was almost like, not to say that Mongi was saying the opposite, but he was saying that it's better to analyze and not be so up in people's faces, and it's what you expect that from a lot of artists would be that they like all up in people's faces and asking questions, doing all this, chatting too much. And I was always insecure about that about myself, and that I would like to stick to myself, revise my notes, listen to music to calm down, to get into the zone. And it was nice because he Mongi reinforced that is okay, like that is a good thing, and it made me feel a lot better about going to auditions and not talking to people, or not rather not avoiding, but like just keeping to myself and focusing on what it is I'm there for. um so yeah, that was a really nice thing to hear. um and then I came across the thing that I am actually also just very, I mean, I already knew this, but like I'm self-sabotaging in that um I I basically like set myself up for failure before it even happens. And I think that's why the going to practice, to practice to fail, like practicing to audition, um, is a really big thing, and it stuck with me because it makes sense to get to that level of comfort where you can just be yourself and have no expectations of success or failure and what that determines for yourself. Um, yeah. And he obviously said, to read more, definitely. Um, and then there was the understanding that like care. I actually didn't know this, but care and the Chubak technique, but care is like for that 15-minute sort of refresher, and then Chubbuck is like when you have more time to analyze a script. And I think that's something that's really helpful for me. Um, so yeah, and yeah, being on campus as well, just to, because I mean that's also now a thing. It's really weird. It's good to be on campus again. It's good to see, to be in the space of um, the industry, and they were a little bit harsh, but like they always are, um, saying the saying the things that are true but people don't want to hear. Like when they were showing us the interviews that actors were having in LA, and it was so depressing. Like them struggling, talking about how, you know, how their parents view their decision and how what it meant sticking to what they were doing. Um, yeah, and then also just your part time not becoming your full time, you know, and not getting distracted in the pursuit of what really matters, and that's acting. Um, and it's scary because I mean there was the one example of the girl who learned for 5 characters, and the preparation was huge, and she didn't get it, and that's crazy because I mean you put in all that work and time and you don't get it. But I think you know what it is. I think it falls into that pressure and that expectation of having to get it down and having to get next month's rent and having to prove to everyone that this is what you're supposed to be doing and comparing yourself to the big names. And I know that's something that I do, so I can't really preach on these things when I'm not even practicing it. But thing is, like Sir says, it's for the love of the craft. And I think that when you understand that and not put so much pressure on yourself to get paid and recognized, that's when I think you'll get the gig. Because then it's you doing it for the love of doing it. And when you do that, it shows. So, yeah. It's scary. Oh my gosh, it's so scary. Terrified. That's okay. But this was my first journal entry. I don't know, actually, I still don't know how long these things are supposed to be, so I'm talking. So yeah. See you next week.